Hello there everyone, welcome back to the Effective Leadership course. Better safe than sorry, right? Therefore, I will comment here on some ways for you to learn how to deal with conflicts in teams and avoid even falling into the drama triangle. Remember, the vital tip, it is only created when the three roles exist and they are created at the same time. Hit thumbs up if you want more content related to leadership. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel too. The first tip is to talk only about the problem, keeping as close to the facts as possible, without attacking directly or making judgments about the actions of others. Also, avoid the use of generalizations like always, never, or every time. It is common to start the process of creating this psychological game when we make judgments about the other's attitudes, automatically labeling it as wrong, saying that they always do this, that they never respect people, or that they are always interrupting. It is better to say, I was interrupted in the middle of my speech and I feel that my authority has been undermined in front of others. Instead of, he always interrupts people and doesn't let them speak. Therefore, the second tip is not to talk about our emotions as if they represent the absolute truth. Your feeling is completely valid at all times, and I strongly encourage people to express themselves. But it's important that you also understand that you can react emotionally because you misinterpreted a case. Admit that there is a possibility that we are wrong. For example, in the previous case, assume the person, the victim, was in a presentation and that they were interrupted by the alleged villain. Here, you have complete freedom to comment with another person about what happened. It is part of human nature. Only instead of saying that that person took away your authority and you were frustrated by it, you can point out how afraid you are of having lost authority to your colleagues. And you think that cuts in your speech represents the person's disdain in what you have to say. That is, here in your speech, you admit that what caused the problem is your interpretation of what happened and not the person who interrupted you is inherently bad. Of course, still the best solution would be for you to go directly to the person. So, the third tip would be to acknowledge your mistakes. As I mentioned, you can have your opinions and feelings. I'm not here to go against it, but it's often not our job to impose or to fight to make others realize how wrong they are. Even more, you in the position of a leader may have to opt out of this instinct at various times in order to effectively learn how to deal with conflicts in teams. I don't want you to stop expressing your feelings, but rather to reflect on the best time for that to happen. How to deal with conflicts in teams deal with conflicts in teams by being more humble. The fact happened, someone was guilty, someone was held responsible. I understand the need to tell the facts as it happened. Just be careful because when doing this, people often read as if it were an attempt to completely avoid taking responsibility. In general, my fourth tip is to avoid wanting to make it clear how the person is guilty. Usually, this is done to turn people against the accused person and for making him or her feel bad. An alternative is for you to express your dissatisfaction without sounding hostile towards others. You can express how you perceive that the situation played out, how you feel that it has affected you and will affect you, and what you think would have been a better way. This way, it becomes more evident that your problem was with the situation, not with the person. Sure, it was the person who did it, but at least it doesn't sound like a direct attack. Cool? Confront people directly. I even mentioned in a past lesson that we should not be afraid to raise tensions. Yeah, in order not to create these drama triangles, the fifth tip would be to head directly to the people against whom you are harboring some negative feelings. This prevents us from entering a vicious cycle of creating an increasingly negative perception of them. Don't theorize or create stories about other people. It will be even worse if you comment to others about what you think happens. This is the first step towards creating these psychological games. Remember, there is no drama triangle if only two people are involved. Finally, as a sixth tip, show empathy. It will be important that you demonstrate that you care to learn how to deal with conflicts in teams. One thing I always say is that it doesn't really matter if you feel empathy, you have to show it. Cool? This doesn't mean that conflicts will be absent from our relationships, but that they will not become psychological games. They will be seen as opportunities to learn more about each other and to build an authentic and respectful relationship. The use of empathy for me is a weapon of positive manipulation because you end up driving the relationship towards a more fruitful path in the short, medium, and long terms. The drama triangle can be a common situation. All of these alternatives given seek to reconcile the needs of each one and generate a win-win perspective for all sides, in which people recognize and have their needs met. You will need to communicate with creativity and authenticity. Being able to speak to a caring third person helps you to find clarity within yourself. The point here is whether you don't expect them to act on your behalf or to play favorites. This is the principle of virtually all drama triangles and how to deal with conflicts in teams. Likewise, if you see that someone is trying to hastily defend you, step in and say that if you think you need help, you will ask. As a leader, your role will likely involve many drama triangles, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that your team is dysfunctional because of that alone. The maturity of the team comes when you all realize that this is happening and organize yourselves to solve it. Your role as a manager in the beginning will be to dictate the best way for this to happen. As we say in my hometown, better than that, just twice that. To recap what we saw in these past 3 lessons, we understood a little bit better about what the drama triangle is. A model of psychological game that happens in teams, in which 3 or more people assume these roles. The victim, the person who is affected by the situation and who is being wronged. The villain, the one who persecutes and who causes the victim suffering. And the hero, who will intervene on behalf of the victim to save him or her from the villain. The biggest problem in the drama triangle happens when people stop communicating. Then the problem affects more and more people, preventing those who are actually involved in it from communicating with each other. This further worsens the team's storming stage. The best way to prevent the drama triangle from being created or developing further is by confronting the 2 people supposedly in the roles of the villain and the victim. Only they can solve the case. In the next and final lessons of our effective leadership course, we will cover what are the skills of a leader, so you will have a greater sense of what you should focus on. In the lesson, there will be a self-assessment tool, so you can check how you score in each skill. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel to follow the lessons, like this content if you think it has helped you, and share it with your colleagues and coworkers. Always look good both ways. See you in the future.